I don't ever want to get to the point that I stop being surprised by life itself. And weird is that the destiny, so those little cosmic winks, it's the universe letting us know that something miraculous might be just around the corner. Those parts of us that we thought were too much, too strange, too unlike anyone else, is the exact medicine that we're here to bring through.
Truth is not sexy, and it may mean that sales from a facilitator who operates from that place of acceptance of self, like instead of the you could be this tomorrow. Welcome to the Life by 8 podcast. Today we have got Jessicka Anne, and we are talking about the word weird. And so, as I do for each episode of this series, I talk about the etymology of the word. And so the word weird is from the 1400s. Having power to control fate. Force that sets events in motion or determines their course, what is destined to befall one. From the Old English weird, fate, chance, fortune, destiny, the fates. The modern senses developed from weird sisters, not immediately from the Old English word, which is etymologically that which becomes. So what I love about the word weird is how we use it in today's context. And it's something that I'm sure that you've heard yourself be called or felt yourself. And so, Jessicka, can you do an intro? Give us a bit of insight about who you are.
So, my name is Jessicka Anne. I'm the founder of the Artemisia Alchemical College, which is a school where I teach the signature modality that I created called the Shamanic Shadow Work Method, which is essentially an energetics-led method to get a direct insight into the unconscious so that we can excavate the shadow and integrate it.
And so for random other people, what does that mean?
So the shadow is the aspects of the self that we repress. So the parts of us that we thought were unlovable or too much or not acceptable. Often we learn these things in childhood. We also have societal shadows, of course, but typically it's those parts of us that we disown. And so often when we hear about shadow, it's often looked at through the mind, like through asking good questions and inquiring and those things. But what makes the work that I do different is that we work directly with the energy body to track where the shadow is being held in the system so that we can bring it to the consciousness. Because that's one of the biggest obstacles that people have to integrating it, is that it's unseen to us, which is part of why we call it the shadow. So working with the energy body, it makes it a lot quicker. Yeah.
And so what does the word weird mean to you?
I love that I was thinking about our conversation last time we got talking about the word weird. She's like, well, you must be used to this kind of thing. Like, if anyone that's listening, synchronicity is something that's a pretty daily occurrence to me. Mm-hmm. But I still love to refer to it as weird because I don't ever want to get to the point that I stop being surprised by life itself. And weird is that the destiny, so those little cosmic winks, it's the universe letting us know that something miraculous might be just around the corner. That's
great.
Weird means
so
to me.
With words in society, we can change the meaning of things. So, for example, teenagers especially seem to like to change the meaning of words. 6'7" now means something, but it didn't really mean anything. But, when we were growing up, so I'm 39, I think we're roughly around the same age-ish. And when you would call somebody weird as a child, what did it mean? What did you think society meant back then?
So I love that question because weird was typically the outsider. It was the person that didn't fit into the norm. It was someone that put us on edge. My dad is an Aquarius, which I feel is an important part of this conversation. So classic mismatcher. His big thing was he would always tell me stories of how if everyone in his friendship circle was wearing black, he'd have to wear blue. And so there was this consistent conversation around the power inside the outsider. So for me, even though weird was thrown around as an insult or something to kind of put you in line in some respects, there was always a strange badge of honor for me inside it as well because of my dad. So there was almost like it was a push-pull between the weird as we would mean it in most conversations.
Absolutely. And so there are a lot of people who think that they're weird, and so they might mask or they may show up differently and try to fit in to what might be classed as normal. Why do you think we do that? And what problems in society are happening now for individuals and the collective because of that fitting in and avoiding our own weirdness?
Such a big topic, because we could go all the way back to, like, and I almost want to bring values levels into this straight away.
Bring them in. I usually do. Usually,
Let's
pretty much
start
every podcast, I talk about values levels.
Well, yeah, values levels, level 2, the tribe. And so back when we were living in those tribal societies, being exiled was akin to death. And even if we look at phenomena like the witch trials, like the being the outsider, being the weird one, the unusual one, could equate death. So we've adapted to believe that fitting in is survival. And so back to the conversation we're having before about the shadow, we start to repress and mask and disown aspects of self. What this then creates on a societal level is that all of those aspects don't go away. They just play out in the periphery. And so bigger conversations we're having right now around phenomena, say, like toxic masculinity or what it is to be a woman, all of these things are really just byproducts of these larger shadows and this desire to fit in.
Mm-hmm. In I own childcare centres, and we talk about the national framework, early years learning framework, and it's like being, belonging, becoming. And it's like this belonging and this natural human tendency to want to belong, because belong equals safety. And social media and its creation may have made us feel like we're more connected. However, there is a loneliness epidemic and a feeling of feeling disconnected more than ever, from what I can tell. What do you think we're moving into at the moment on a societal collective consciousness level? What do you think's happening, or what do you think needs to happen for whatever's next for us?
It's interesting when we think about this idea of technology bringing us together but also making us further apart. I think one of the things that's really occurring is the splintering of the idea of a consensus reality. I think that's one thing that when we had moderated or audited channels for communication, there was this sense of consensus reality. Whereas what we're really experiencing in real time now is just how each of us are having very different experiences online. If I open up your social media profile, I'm sure, being that we're in a similar industry, there would be some overlap, but there'd also be a lot of separateness. And I think that some people are aware of that and some aren't, but either way we are experiencing the influence of our own perception and how we're projecting that more into the world. And so in some ways that's going to create more division. But from a Hermetic worldview, which is, might get into the esoteric today, which I don't know.
Let's go. Let's go wherever it takes you.
I do believe in the energetic principle of polarity and rhythm, that things will swing one way and then they'll swing the other. And so this idea of us really recognizing how separate we are, how we're all having our own individual experience, inevitably that will correct itself. It will actually allow us to start to understand what it is to have different viewpoints and maybe make space for those things to exist inside a dialogue, because before it was suppressed, whereas now we're getting that immediate feedback online all the time. And it's a process of maturation for us as a collective to start to navigate what it feels like to have such a diversity of ranges of experience available to us and opinions available to us. And so I feel like what's going to need to happen is that we are going to need to mature our relationship with communication, emotional intelligence, and also more than ever with this AI explosion, like what is it to be a human being and what is it to relate on a human level?
Mm-hmm. So what is it?
What is it to relate on a human level? Presence is one of those words that it's so funny. As I'm speaking, I'm getting goosebumps. I don't know if it's really cold in here or I'm on something. Is it a thread? Is it a thread or am I just cold? But presence to me is one of those things that I have become a student of. I think when you can seek to be fully present with yourself and the person in front of you, that's when magic can happen. Like how much we armor against, coming back to the shadow conversation, how much of those things that we have rejected and repressed we seek to armor against. And similarly, we get uncomfortable in the person in front of us as a result. The more that we can drop into presence with that, and into the presence with the person in front of us, the more that we can actually see them as a human being and get curious and understand their diversity of experience and what brings them here.
What is the benefit for ourselves or for others for us not to see the person in front of us?
I think when we are able to obscure or create a role for someone in front of us, it provides a mirror for us to be able to look inward. So often the source of conflict is what we've made the conflict mean, rather than necessarily what's actually occurring. And so the quicker that we can notice our assumptions and where we're resurrecting past pain and applying it to the current situation, the more that we actually get to know ourselves, which allows a deeper presence and awareness of who we are.
So how does weird show up as shadow in adults?
I think that it's interesting to me because since the pandemic, I feel like a lot of the threads of this are being pulled apart, for better or worse. But the conventional idea of you grow up, you go to uni, you get the job, you get a well-paid job, you meet the person, you have the kids, you buy the house. It's like this idea of a template of a life that we've been handed. And I love the way that you so often articulate this as a fantasy that we've been sold. And so often when we realize that we have desires that deviate from this, it makes us feel insufficient or broken in some way. Like I've just turned 36, and the dialogue that I'm often having as a woman that hasn't had children is, am I going to have children? Are you going to have kids? Do you want kids? I just recently got engaged. And of course, that's the next conversation. Do you guys want kids? And every now and again, I sit there and go, is there something wrong with me because I haven't had that maternal switch flick on? Because it's weird. And so it sometimes isolates me from other people because I can see how it's so much the norm to want children. And so I think that how it affects adults is that often we subjugate our desires to maintain a front. And each time we do that, it's a form of self-abandonment. So it creates a lot of internal conflict and has us chasing things that we don't really want.
And can't always articulate. Do you think we call things weird when they're actually just unfamiliar or unintegrated?
Unfamiliar. I feel like it's interesting because what we say and what we send can be such different things. I think weird is often a way that we create otherness, so unintegrated for sure, often coupled with discomfort. So, well, that makes me uncomfortable, like you're other to me and that makes me uncomfortable. There's too many threads that I always think back to when you had the braveness to tell me that for you, when you first heard of me, you thought I was weird.
Yeah.
And the fact that for you there was a curiosity there to figure out what was in me that you weren't seeing in you. So I think we often call things weird either to shut things down or because there is a curiosity.
And I think it matches to values levels, like the even values levels are collective and the odd numbers are self. And in those parts, I think when it comes to weird or the concept of belonging, it's like, depends on where we are in our own human evolution. We want to belong, so we don't want to be weird. And then there's parts where we actually have to lean into our weirdness and become separate so that we can discover who we are without the we. So that's why I love values levels, because I feel like it gives somebody insight into what's actually going on for them and the things that they're rejecting and potentially why they're rejecting them. What happens in the nervous system when someone feels like they're weird?
Again, depending on the relationship with it. And so that's where I feel like that's such a, and of course the pattern that we run around it. So for such a long time, because I run such a strong outsider pattern, it was almost, I would make myself weird as a defense mechanism. And so it was almost a bit of a fight behind it. It was a fight response. For other people, it might be a fawn. It might be the sense of, oh, well, I just need to befriend you so that way you don't other me. And so the range of what can happen in the nervous system typically would be sympathetic, but if you have been exposed to that repeatedly, you could drop into like a more parasympathetic or, hyperparasympathetic state like Fawn. Either way, vigilance is probably the one thing that would come up commonly.
Mm-hmm. What do you mean by vigilance?
Assessing for threat. It's like, well, how am I going to navigate the situation in front of me for survival? How am I going to create distance or overcome? So with vigilance, though, it doesn't tend to be something that we just pick up and then decide to put down because it's unconscious. And so vigilance can be something that we then take forward into every area of life. Like I was having a conversation with one of my clients the other day. She runs a 8-figure company. And she was explaining to me how one of her staff members were operating out of contempt. And I said to her, what specific behaviour for you demonstrates that she is operating from contempt? It's like, well, we had this argument and now she's underperforming. I said, well, the assumption there is that the argument is correlated to the underperformance rather than actually seeing them as two independent issues. And so for her, the vigilance that she's picked up, she's basically built that company from the ground up, and it's been a lot of fight energy for her. Her vigilance has now had her assume that her team are against her, and that's how she's coming at the conversation rather than actually getting curious around, is it a lack of resources? Is there something more here, rather than actually taking it as something personal?
Okay. What do you think the energetic cost is of trying to be normal?
Energetic cost. I think beyond the energetic cost, I think it's a self-relationship cost more than anything. A big part of my story, for those of you that have never heard of me before, is my late husband passed away when I was 28 and he was 36. And as difficult as that situation for me was, one of the things it did afford me was to realize just how long, we don't know how long we have. And we had done all of the quote-unquote right things. We were both working well-paying jobs, looking after his 2 kids. We'd done all the right things. But what it made me realize is how many of his dreams remained unfulfilled inside him. And so it really was a wake-up call for me to realize just how much energy I had been expending trying to fit the ideal and to fit inside that box. And I only have this one wild, crazy, precious life to live. Like, who am I doing it for?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the energetic cost is the lack of fulfillment and self-awareness and the richness that comes from really getting to know oneself and living a life true to oneself. And it is exhausting putting on a mask, ultimately. But so often we are so used to it that we don't even realize there's an alternative until we let the mask slip. So I think it is that we've given this gift of this present moment to get to know oneself, and we can forfeit it just as easily by choosing to mask.
What do you think the difference is, or what's your understanding of the difference between identity and personality?
Identity is the construct that we create to keep ourselves safe. It is the byproduct of our conditioning, our physiology to some respects. Whereas I'd say personality is more who we are when we allow ourselves to integrate the parts that we've rejected. Truthfully, like, I actually do believe, like, in a lot of spiritual spaces, ego is made to be a bad thing. I actually think that the ego is a healthy representation of the will of the spirit, if we can get out of our own way enough for that to be true. So yeah, I do think identity can operate much the same way, but often if we just think about baseline identity, it is the construct that we create to protect ourselves.
Okay. What are some signs that you might have seen or experienced in your clients of someone who is suppressing their weirdness versus genuinely outgrowing it?
Desire is a big one. I speak often to desire. It's funny because in a lot of Eastern teachings, desire is considered to be the root of all suffering. I actually think rejection of the present moment is what the root of all suffering is. You can want something and still be okay with where you are. And often I find that when someone's suppressing their weirdness, there is a desire. There is a genuine life force activation towards something. But for whatever reason, for fear, we reject it or suppress it. Whereas when someone is outgrowing it, which I can definitely say I've had moments of that myself with the outsider script, we start to actually become aware of all of the opportunity cost. So all the places that we continue to repeat a pattern out of protection as opposed to authenticity. And that was really, really present to me when probably about 12 months ago I really started to become aware of just how much I'd made myself the outsider. And I was noticing that I would reject myself before other people had an opportunity to reject me. And the desire was that I wanted to be able to connect with more people that were aligned and share my message and share my work more. And so it wasn't coming from an authentic weirdness, it was coming from a protective weirdness.
How do you work with shame that's attached to I'm too much, too strange, or not like others?
Shame is an interesting one. Like typically my default method is to work with the Shamanic Shadow Work Method. Like I said before, with any of these things that we repress, energy doesn't go away. Energy can only be transferred. And so when we have an experience of shame, typically what happens is we go into a collapse and that thing is not safe to feel. Our nervous system, our energy body, all of it goes into a place of repression and holding. And so when I'm working with someone and we're discussing whatever it is that they've repressed, typically I can sense where in their energy field they're holding that. And so I will support them to create the safety for them to create a relationship with that and go through a process of integrating it. So with the Shamanic Shadow Work Method, we've got two pathways. One involves being able to integrate the inner child part, because often inner child parts are the ones that are continuing to hold the shame. And then there's the other pathway, which is more for people that have had significant trauma or things that have occurred that would make it less safe for them to be re-exposed. We basically just work directly with the energy and get the needs met that weren't, or have the resources applied that weren't available at the time for the body to soften and allow the energy to move. So that way we're recoding it from the base level. And so for shame around being weird or whatever it might be, it's really being able to figure out what part of you wasn't okay to be loved or to be felt or to be expressed at the time, and resourcing it now as the loving adult and guardian of who you are.
How do gender, race, family systems and hierarchy shape what gets called weird?
Such a big question, because it's intergenerational. It's like if we even think about the word weird and how you were explaining before when it was first spoken about, weird was often to do with fate and destiny. But because of its depiction in popular media, it being relegated to, the witches in Macbeth or whatever it might be, it become associated with outsider figures. But if you consider even like outsider figures, often they tend to be coupled with ethnic stereotypes. It's like Romani people. It's like the Romani were the weird ones because they were connected to lineages that had access to that. And so often what we perceive to be weird is coded through this idea of something that we're not grown up with, or something we're not familiar with. And so it can be systemic in the way that we view weirdness. Like I have Aboriginal heritage from my dad's side, and that was a family secret for a couple of generations. And so there's still aspects of that within my dad's family that are considered weird, even though it is who we are. So I'm not sure if I've answered your question, but I would say that it's...
Well, I think when I look at, I think we're in a time of human evolution where we're starting to recognize, or we have enough history to see the impact those who are classed as weird actually have on human evolution. So a common subject would be neurodiversity, ADHD, autism, and those type of traits, and the people who run the big companies or create the innovations all typically are outside of the neurotypical box. And I think we have enough history and patterns to start to see that on a bigger scale, on a more mainstream scale. And so the reason, talking about weird was so important is because I actually think for our next human evolution, for what we need next for survival, is for more people to be in their weird, for more people to be fully expressed, fully themselves. And so I think it's important to understand how culture and those race, class, our genders, all of those expectations that are programmed within us, why it's so important, because that's why all of those systems are collapsing at the moment. Again, my belief only. So, I guess, how do you coach people through the first time they show their weird publicly?
I remember I had a coach when I first started to decide to get really visible on social media, and it was I'm going to sit here until you record a live, and then we're going to talk about how you didn't die. And I think there's definitely a time and a place for that, realizing that the nervous system and the exposure to that amount of energy. But it's also being able to connect to what's on the other side of that. I think so often we are driven by a push. It's like, well, I can't be this because I'm not brave or I'm weak or whatever it is that we try to motivate ourselves out of hiding. But to your point, being able to realize on the other side of that who we get to become, but also who we get to touch. It's like, who do you get to give permission to as a result? Like, what do you get to stand for? And how can you allow yourself to start to recognize the importance of shining that light and being the permission slip? I don't want to use permission again, but it's so much about permission. So when I'm working with someone to start to express more of their weird, first of all, I get them to look at who decided that. So what was the actual conditions that had you decide that this wasn't acceptable? But also, how is this ultimately your gift, part of the thing that you're here to bring through and support others with? Because so often, I'm a bit of an astrology nerd, as Beck knows, but often our Chiron, which is our core wound, is so connected to the work that we're here to do in the world. And similarly, those parts of us that we thought were too much, too strange, too unlike anyone else, is the exact medicine that we're here to bring through. So starting to look at the flip side of that. I really like Demartini's models for that. It's like, how can we look at both the positive and the negative and actually come back to that point of neutrality to truly see the potential that exists inside something. So often when I'm working with people, it is being able to come back to like, well, how has this actually allowed you to thrive in ways that you haven't seen before? And what is the ripple effect of you allowing it to shine it through?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What's the weirdest thing about you?
The weirdest thing about me is that I'm actually really boring, I would say, if I was to take a zoomed out level of things. I think because I dress like a witch, I'm a rock star, I make memes, I do all of these things, but when it comes down to it, like one of the places I'm most happy is next to my fiance on the couch, watching something silly.
Stranger Things for me right now. Hurry up and be the 25th. So you think that the weirdest thing about you is that you're boring?
That's the thing that I've othered inside myself. Like if I think about one of the reasons that I am somewhat private on social media is I'm like, well, my life is not exactly exceptional in terms of what I enjoy to do. It's like I love working with people, and a lot of the results and the things I get to do as a result of my work, a lot of people would probably think is quite exceptional, but me as a person in terms of what I love to do, it's quite boring.
It's not really. It's like quite relatable.
See, outsider, can't be relatable.
No, I mean, no, Rebecca. How do I be not relatable more? What do you think the world would look like if people didn't shame weird?
So interesting, because I feel like I have had conversations with people around where I was bullied as a kid, and by no means am I condoning schoolyard bullying. It is horrible. However, it also helped me to develop a lot of traits inside myself that I am now quite proud of. And so as a culture, what happens when we stop shaming weird? It could be twofold. We could have this influx of genius and mavericks and innovation and all of this wonderful uprising, like a renaissance is the word they want to use. But we'd also have the collapse of a lot of the systems that we have grown to know and to love and to understand, and the ways that we navigate inside the world. And so as a society, if we stop shaming weird, there would be a collapse. And then eventually we'd have to learn to navigate what a world post-shame would look like.
What if that's what's happening right now?
It very well could be.
It's very interesting, because I think that shame, like if we talk about emotions and frequency, shame is, you know, a very, 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 if not the lowest emotion when it comes to frequency. And it's a thing that has so much power over people. And when we speak about it, it loses its power. And I think those conversations are happening more and more, especially, you know, in the last 2 decades with Brene Brown's work on shame and vulnerability, and the work that more and more people are doing in that space around shame. I find it really, really interesting when we talk about what's normal and what's not, and the black and white of what that means. And if I look at values level 4, you know, guilt being the number one emotion, really, and we turn a lot of guilt into shame, and that's why a lot of the work that I do speaks into, do you know the difference between guilt and shame? And a lot of people don't. They'll feel guilt and turn it into shame, but they only felt the guilt because somebody told them that they should. So is the guilt actually real in the first place? And then the shame around desiring things that are outside of the norm. So if you don't want to have children, that's selfish, or that's whatever people say around it. If you want to have children, and you want to have children and have a business, and you want to have children and you don't want to breastfeed, or you want to have children and you breastfeed, if you want to not get married or get married for the 3rd time, all of these things and what society's take is on what is normal. I think that in all ways and in all systems, the normal box is being burned. I talk about the neurotypical box no longer being relevant, though I think about the normal, the typical, starting to dissipate as more people lean into their weirdness, and also because they have to for survival. Like, I actually think people leaning into their weirdness is what's keeping them alive.
I think so, particularly as you mentioned, the structures that we've relied upon are disintegrating, which is a step in evolution. I don't want to freak anybody out, but it's like, you know,
they're all crumbling.
The butterfly must dissolve before it is the the caterpillar.
Yeah.
Anyway, you get the metaphor, guys.
Mm-hmm.
It is. It's like really recentering and reorienting where we're finding truth, which I think is also kind of scary. It's like we're living in a post-truth society. Like, a lot of the forums of information we've relied upon are now questioned. And so there is a bigger permission slip to embrace the weird, not only because that which was typical is no longer going to serve, but also what was defined as normal is less clear. It's interesting to watch how some people are scrambling forward or scrambling back.
3D, 5D split, if you are in woo-woo side, or values or 3 regression, or if we continue to progress as a collective upwards to, you know, VR5, VR6. I think on that space, it's like we have like truth is a really big piece for me at the moment in the, you know, when we talk about AI and we talk about technological advancements. But I think that there's this element of truth that's playing out, and whether it's people being voluntary with their truth or if it's being forced out somehow, I believe that we are awakening to more truth. And that's where the scrambling comes in, because if we've spent most of our life being externally told what to do and what's right and what's wrong, we have lost the ability to have discernment for ourselves as to what is right and what is wrong. And so in the work that I do specifically, having people understand discernment and how their choices, like that they get to choose, and that they are always choosing whether or not they're consciously aware of it. But what foundation are they making those choices from? Is that foundation from truth, their truth, whatever that means for them? And you know, whether you believe in starseeds and spirits and aliens and all of whatever, we are this human in this moment having this human experience. And so we might understand or come across human design or our natal chart or whatever it is, and that gives us an understanding, and I believe fully in that alignment with our purpose and our soul's purpose, our meaning. But up until that point, you've had a human experience, and that has created certain traits, behaviors, and created the reality that we're in at that time. But I find a lot of people discover and get this like blueprint for, you know, the time that they were born, the moon was here and all of those sort of things. Then though, don't actually know how to get into alignment with that. And so part of the work that I find really important to do is to help people understand the human experience they've had up until that point, and how do you reverse engineer to get back into that alignment, because that's how you get discernment, that's how you eliminate spiritual bypassing, that's how you get embodiment, in my belief. Is that if great that more people are becoming aware of a blueprint for themselves of where to move their life's direction, their life's purpose, their design. But a lot of that's happening not embodied. That creates a lot more pain and hurt.
It's part of the reason why, as a system, I've navigated more to astrology, because from an astrology lens, each of the zodiac signs is an archetype. And so any archetype exists on a spectrum. And so it's not a sense of alignment as much as it is potential. An archetype can exist in its shadow, or it can exist in its elevated expression. And so similarly, when I'm working with people, I often use the astrology chart as a way to start to look at the shadows, the things that we would have most likely repressed, because that archetype is active in the undercurrents of our psyche. And so, say for example, I could tell, love him or dislike him, I could tell that Elon Musk was bullied as a child because of the placement of his Saturn. So Saturn for him is in the 11th house, which is related to community. And so for him, there needed to be an experience of restriction in community for him to develop into the person that he's here to be. And so was it in alignment or out of alignment for him to have that experience? I see it as the seed that creates the traits that we're actually here to develop more of. And some people will take those traits and, much like a shovel, you can hit someone over the head or you can build a garden. And so I think astrology becomes useful when we get curious around it.
What do you wish more people knew about themselves?
I wish more people understood how powerful they are. As much as that can be a little bit of a generic statement, it's so true. I think that we're so quick to externalize so much of what occurs, and yes, everything is a co-creative experience. We're operating under multiple laws and forces at all times. And like you said before, there is always a choice. We are so much more powerful on multiple levels of our being than we give ourselves credit for. And I think if people really fully understood that, they would marvel at what life gets to become. I remember I was asked why I do the work that I do. And I said it's because I'm really excited to be here today. And there was a period in my life where that wasn't true. And what I meant by that is when you understand that you are the product of so many miracles to be where you are right now, you get to start to see how wondrous the mundane can be. And so many of those things are all because of the choices that you've made. And so if you don't like the current experience, similarly, you have so much capacity to change it. Yeah.
So you talk about the weirdest thing about you as being boring and mundane. That's actually where the magic is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which aligns to presence. What do you think What is your opinion on what's happening in society today?
I feel like I have about 5 different opinions.
Great.
It's funny because I definitely have those human moments where I can touch on the terror of the uncertainty of everything that's unfolding. It's like, is everything going to collapse? Is it going to turn into chaos? Are people going to be able to tell what's true and what's false? And so there's an aspect of me that definitely feels that. And I can feel that in the collective mind. My opinion, though, is that we are at a really important point in history in terms of the trajectory of the next 100 to 300 to 500 years. Because, 100% of statistics prove the point that people come up with them for. But I can't remember who said it's like we're experiencing more technological advancement in the next 10 years than we have in the last 10,000. And so we're really being asked to reevaluate, like we mentioned before, that human relationship with consciousness with each other. And so my opinion is that the threads that are being pulled right now are to prepare us for what's coming. Like, not only just in terms of the amount of information that's going to be available to us, the amount of processing power that's going to be available to us. Like, quantum computers are solving in 30 minutes problems that would have taken the history of the whole universe to solve before. Like, even as I say that right now, my brain scrambles to try to get around that. And so my opinion of what's happening in society is that we are really noticing where we've kind of put duct tape and those little strap things. What are they called?
Butterfly stitches? I don't know. I'm going.
Zip ties.
Zip ties, yep. Great.
My late husband was an electrician. That was the solution for everything.
Yes, zip ties.
Zip ties. Including the bumper on our car for a period of time. But yes, it's like where we've put duct tape and zip ties on everything to hold it together. We're really going through the speed test. It's like, okay, this has got us to this point. Is it going to stand the speed test? And unfortunately, sometimes things don't stand the speed test. There's a reason that we put crash test dummies in cars and ram the walls.
Oh, do you know that we finally have female crash dummies that are coming in this week?
I didn't.
We have never had crash dummies that have the model of a female.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Interestingly, just tie in that, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a whole other can of worms, but great feminism. But yeah, to that point, I think that's my opinion. We're undergoing the speed test, rapid evolution. What is not going to withstand this next cycle?
And with the speed of how things are going, how do you feel, or what do you think is happening with people's nervous systems?
Disassociation is a huge thing. Like at the time of recording this, we're about to undergo the social media ban for people under the age of 16, which, as with most things, I can see the drawback and the positives too. The nervous system being such a material, grounded, animal part of us, it's going to take a while for us to catch up. It's like, our prefrontal cortex might be totally on board. It's like the part of us that processes higher order thinking and decisions. So, but it's the animal part of us that's really going to be taking the brunt of it. And in order for us to really be able to navigate what's coming, it's important for us to learn the human system for ourselves. Because, to your point, so much of what we've understood about ourselves has come from an external authority. That's including our physical bodies. Like, even when you mentioned before about there's never been female crash test dummies. It's like, how does your nervous system respond to different stimulus? How do you go under certain situations? And so that literacy of being able to feel your body when you are in your body, when you're not in your body, when something's activating you, I think that is going to be a key skill for us to navigate the amount of acceleration that's coming.
There's a lot of people out there doing like ice baths and breath work and these things and trying to understand the nervous system more. And I wonder what impact that's actually having. Or is it that what each person's nervous system needs is different.
I think it's beautiful that we have so much more awareness in some respects. There's more information than there has ever been. It's like, even when you asked me before, it's like, how would you define like vigilance? It's like, wait a second, it's like, this has become a part of my day-to-day conversation. Let me peel that back for a moment to actually think about, well, how does vigilance show up? And so it's beautiful that I'm sitting here at the age of 36 understanding what vigilance is, who my mum at 63 probably still doesn't know what vigilance is. But often these tools can also become a weapon that we use to make ourselves wrong. It becomes a new measuring stick. It's like, well, I like ice baths, so therefore I'm tough and I'm right and I'm good and I get up at 5 o'clock and I dunk my face in water and all of those things. Whereas for some people's physiology, that creates more stress. And so I come from studying a lot of tantric work. And so one of the biggest game changers for me was learning about descent, actually starting to experience the sensations in the body rather than overriding them. And I think that so often with a lot of the nervous system tools people go to first, a lot of it is ascension based. It's up and out rather than down and through. And I think that being able to have access to both of those sets of tools and being able to learn what your body needs and responds to throughout your life, because you are an evolving human being, is really essential. Because otherwise, we are left feeling broken and we start to use it as a stick to beat ourselves with.
Mm-hmm. What's your opinion on the current state of the coaching industry?
I just had like a deer in headlights moment.
Well, the ASC, the autistic part of me, just went straight there. Yeah,
I loved it. That was good.
There's no segue. Sorry, listeners.
We're coming up to an intersection. Oh, someone just pulled out. All right, let me recover from that one. It's interesting. I was listening to a podcast earlier on talking about authority building, which for those of you that are not coaches or people that aren't having personal brands, it's this idea of how do you differentiate yourself? How do you take up space? How do you own the weight of what you bring? And a lot of people build authority through polarization, through shitting on the coaching industry. Myself having been guilty of that in the past, I will fully own that. Mm-hmm. I think that the coaching industry, the things I love about it are also the things that frustrate me the most. It's a largely unregulated industry, which means that the process of innovation is incredible. For people that come at it with a depth of integrity, the people that want to go and do the speed test, we're going to come back to the speed test analogy, the people that are dedicated to the people and to service, that's incredible. But on the flip side of that, we also have people that are going in blind like a bull into a china shop and not realizing just how damaging that can be for some people. And so the coaching industry excites me because it is the ultimate testing ground and playground for us to really unlock human potential. And I also feel that I need to be mindful of how I articulate this, because I'm going to go lateral. Mm-hmm. A lot of people want to be influencers because they have been sold what being an influencer looks like. I think that we need to make the coaching industry less sexy. Mm-hmm. I would like to see people recognize that you can make a lot of money and you can help a lot of people and you can get a platform for yourself. And if that's the main driver for why you've stepped in, my heart breaks a bit for that. Because first and foremost, I do believe it ought to be about service. And so, let's make coaching less sexy again.
One of the one of my team members asked me the question, like, if a coach comes to you, what do you say? I said, why do you want to be a coach? It's like, what do you mean? I said, that's the first question I asked, because whether they work with me or not is going to be dependent on the answer to that question. Because a lot of the time, somebody might then say, I want to help people. But underneath that, as I continue to question, it's like they want fast money. They want easy money. They want the sense of worthiness. They like to have that impact. But it's about self. They make the results be about themselves. And that's not something that I choose to perpetuate. So I'm very, when someone says to me they want to be a coach, it's a why. And I would say that probably 70% of the time it's like they don't actually want to be a coach.
Yeah.
What they want is the quick money, or the easy money, or the lifestyle, or the whatever they think it is, whatever's being packaged and sold in different parts of the industry, the sector. Because I have had so many conversations with people who've been sold this belief or this dream, and it doesn't come forward, and then they feel worse about themselves than when they first started on this coaching or personal development journey. And so I hear what you're saying in regards to the positives and the negatives around regulation and what that does to stifle innovation when there is too much of it. I believe in the top-down, bottom-up approach, and coaching allows you to do both of those. Many of the traditional professions like psychiatry or psychologists is very much top-down, like from the mind down, when a lot of it is in the body, and the research shows that. So the somatic work. So there is a lot of potential in the coaching sector, and I don't believe it is going to get any smaller, though I believe there is a need for people to be skeptical when they are looking for a coach and to ask certain questions. Because, people think they're in service of others, but a lot of the time unconsciously they're in service of self. And self matters, but it's like that intention. So for me, more coaches to be more embodied in the actual work, that like actually live what they teach, preach, whatever you want to call it. And continue to do the work on themselves, because, we hear often you can only take someone as deep as you've gone yourself. But many people think they go deep, and then in that 7-day course can then start to take people the next day straight into that depth. And it's like there's still an integration that their nervous system needs to, most of the time, needs to be able to hold it, to be able to hold it for others. They've only just gone there themselves. So there's a big piece in psychological safety.
Huge.
For me, when it comes to this, and integrity, as we know, is a very big thing for me in regards to people living in integrity. I think there's a truth in that is coming out in how I see, or what I see is going on in and around Australia, but globally as well.
I feel that often when I said that broad statement of like make coaching less sexy, PD can be very addictive. Like personal development can be addictive. That high of free energy in a room, being around a bunch of people that are growth oriented, those moments where you see aspects of self you haven't seen before, where you realize you did have choice, where you can forgive yourself, like all of those layers coming off, it's a sense of freedom. And some people equate that sense of freedom with a sense of, well, this is what I want to do, and this is what I'm here for. But really, you just love growth, and coaching isn't always the path for everybody to attain. Business isn't the path for everybody to attain that through. And I feel like that, as a side by side conversation, I don't think everyone should be in business either. I think some people thrive and are better suited to be in positions as supporters. And so, embodiment, passion, integrity, psychological safety, and a commitment to craft. So I would not trust anyone that isn't consistently wanting to learn and better themselves. Someone that is unwilling to say, I don't know, is a big one for me. It's like, great, I'm a stellium and Gemini for the astrology nerds listening. I can always have an answer for something. But for me, I trust someone more when they say that they don't know, because that to me admits that they are human and in integrity.
No, aware of their scopes and their limitations, and knowing that they're not the expert for everything. So to wrap up the conversation on weird, is there anything that you think is important that we need to speak about that we haven't spoken about yet?
I think one of the things we haven't spoken about is a culture through which to learn about yourself through. Because often the self-development space can almost sell you an idea of be the person you want to be rather than be the person that you are, and why that matters. And I have my version of that, but I also kind of want to ask you.
So what are you asking me?
So what are some of the traps that you see people fall into in the work when they realize that they can be whoever they want to be rather than necessarily be who they are?
Is the dream. Again, it's a fantasy usually a lot of the times. Like, they can be whoever they want, and that's, humans chase, they think they want freedom, but when they get freedom they don't know what to do with it. It is easier to reject than it is to accept, in my opinion. And that's to do with programming as well. It's easier to reject things about ourselves than it is to accept things about ourselves. Also the magic of shadow work. So there's an acceptance of that's required in who we are, instead of the easier path of rejection of who we know we are, but we can pretend we're not. So to me, it is easier to reject and to fantasize and dream up and create a new version of ourselves than it is to accept who we are and build from that space.
I've seen people spend years of their life in this work basically living in the shadow of this constructed version of who they believe they should be by now. And these people have created 7-figure businesses under the guise of this idealized version and still are completely miserable. And so this baseline of curiosity and compassion and genuine desire to meet yourself and the gold that's there in the present moment can be such a huge game changer for people. Because does that mean you can't achieve incredible things? It's like, well, no, it's just recognizing that you're the horse that you rode in on, rather than trying to knock the horse's legs out from under it and still finish the race. It's like, how can you actually fully back who you are and trust that that's enough?
That, though, doesn't sell. And that's the biggest piece.
Yeah.
Is that that's not sexy.
No.
Truth is not sexy. And it may mean that sales from a facilitator who operates from that place of acceptance of self, like instead of the, you could be this tomorrow. It doesn't sell sometimes, or a lot of the times it doesn't sell. So as much. But I believe that we're on a trajectory of change when it comes to that. I think that the skepticism is required for more people to have more discernment, and they're seeing. And that's where I think the whole truth theme that we've spoken about, that the truth is coming. And truth is, people's weirdness is their truth.
Yeah.
And so the more that comes into alignment, the more we're talking about in regards to discernment and acceptance of who we are. I believe that's where we're heading, and that's the next evolution of humanity.
It's if I was to sit back and say what sits at the heart of my work, it is that. It is, you are the magic of the universe unfolded into a single person, and no other expression of that magic is available anywhere else. It's like you owe it to yourself, you owe it to the world to really get in touch with that. So
Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And any questions, I'll put Jessicka Anne's links in the notes. Thank you so much for joining us and talking about all things weird.
Thank you for having me.